The tale of Bernie Madoff and his $65 billion Ponzi scheme has captivated the world for years. Some believe it's just the story of one man's fall from grace, but the truth is far more sinister. The financial crisis that sent shockwaves around the world was just a side effect of what Madoff did. He was a master of manipulation, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But there are always accomplices behind every great con. A small group of loyal followers helped make up trade paperwork and send false reports to the SEC. Regulators and major financial institutions were powerless to stop the scheme, and many people lost everything they owned. The question remains, how did Madoff get away with it for so long? The answer lies in the cutthroat world of finance. People were reluctant to question their source of prosperity, and Madoff made sure to keep everyone in line. He understood the power of trust and betrayal and played on people's fears and greed to keep his scheme going. But as time passed, the weight of his deception began to take a toll. Madoff was handling the finances of some of the most dangerous people in the world, and he knew that if he was caught, there would be no way out. He was a man with no escape, trapped in a web of lies that he spun for himself. Welcome to our channel. Today we are taking a look into the dark secrets of Bernie Madoff, the man behind the $65 billion scandal. Before I start, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet. Let's start from the beginning. You see, Bernie was born and raised in the Big Apple, and after attending Hofstra University and Brooklyn Law School, he set out to make his mark on Wall Street. And he didn't do it alone. Oh no, he had the love of his life, Ruth Alpern, by his side. Ruth, who had a degree in psychology, and Bernie, with his entrepreneurial spirit, together launched Bernie Madoff LP in 1960. And do you know what they started with? Just $5,000 of Bernie's own money and a $50,000 loan from Bernie's father-in-law. But Bernie and Ruth didn't stop there. They set out to make a low-value securities company that would help connect small businesses with investors with a lot of money. And let me tell you, they made a name for themselves. Bernie even became the chairman of NASDAQ, which was the first electronic stock exchange. By introducing automated trading, he changed the business world. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Bernie, along with his brother Peter, designed a trading software that would later become the foundation for many electronic trading systems used today. It was a game changer, and thanks to Bernie's skills in artificial intelligence, their business was bringing in over $100 million annually by the late 1980s. So there you have it, the early years of Bernie Madoff, a man who went from penny trader to Wall Street tycoon. But as we all know, there's more to the story. Are you ready to uncover the dark secrets of Bernie Madoff? Madoff's story is one of controversy, deceit, and wrongdoing. He lured investors with the promise of high returns using a legal trading method called split-strike conversion. But behind the scenes, Madoff consolidated all of his customers' withdrawal requests into a single bank account. He built strong relationships with wealthy and influential businessmen, giving them substantial returns and using their positive recommendations to attract more investors. Madoff's connections with financial authorities also helped him gain respect and prominence. However, his schemes were exclusive, and not everyone was allowed to invest, making being acknowledged as a Madoff investor a prestigious status symbol for the rich and successful. Madoff guaranteed abnormally high returns of 10 to 20% each year, far above the industry average of below 10%. But there were concerns about the promised returns and Madoff's lack of transparency. He operated through feeder funds set up with unrelated third parties, so investors had yet to learn who was actually handling their money. These feeder funds received millions of dollars in management fees. Harry Markopolos, a well-known financial analyst, was one of the first to raise concerns about Madoff to the SEC in 2000. Using his mosaic theory, Markopolos pointed out a number of discrepancies in a letter to the SEC, including the fact that Bernie's securities was getting commissions on top of the usual hedge fund fees. Despite Markopolos' warnings, Madoff was able to continue his schemes until the market crashed at the end of 2008. On December 10, 2008, he admitted his misconduct to his sons, who also worked at the firm, and handed him over to the authorities the next day. Madoff claimed that his sons had been kept in the dark about the arrangement. At the time of his arrest, Madoff's fund was in charge of more than $64 billion. According to financial reports, the magnitude of the scandal and the number of people affected have left a lasting impact on the financial world. It is said to have started in the 1990s, but no one can say for sure when the fraudulent plan began. Madoff's right-hand man, Frank Tipascali, who had been with Madoff since 1975, testified that the scheme had been ongoing for as long as I can remember. Madoff's true motives for the scheme remain a mystery, but in his own words, he maintained his lavish lifestyle through the money he brought in every year. Wall Street's most powerful people respected him as a market maker and a pioneer in electronic trading because he never did anything wrong. It is important to note that Madoff was not acting alone. He made it clear to interviewer Jason Fishman that there were others involved in the fraud. The Big Four, made up of Stanley Chase, Carl Shapiro, Jeffrey Pickauer, and Norm Levy, were Madoff's clients for a long time. Since the 1960s and 1970s, they made a lot of money from working with him. Each of them made hundreds of millions of dollars through their association with Madoff. The consequences of Bernie Madoff's actions were far-reaching and devastating. After confessing his crimes to his two sons, Andy and Mark, Madoff was swiftly taken into custody and sent to jail. In 2009, he was given a sentence of 150 years in prison and told to pay back an incredible $170 billion. The United States Marshal Service sold off Madoff's 3 luxurious homes and 4 boats, a symbol of the lavish lifestyle he had built through his fraudulent scheme. Even though he filed many appeals, Madoff stayed in jail. He was serving his time at the Butner Federal Correctional Institution in North Carolina, with the inmate number 61717054. However, even in prison, Madoff's story did not come to an end. In 2020, his lawyers asked that he be let out early because he had a disease that would kill his kidneys. Sadly, Madoff passed away on April 14, 2021, but the impact of his actions will continue to be felt for many years to come. As the story goes, Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme was finally exposed after he confessed to his sons, Andy and Mark, who then went to the authorities. Even though the SEC and other regulators had many tips and warnings over the course of 16 years, they were not able to find out about Madoff's fraud. First, the SEC had lawyers who didn't know much about trading, so they couldn't find the proof they needed to show Madoff's scheme. Second, the regulators' investigations were flawed from the start. They were led by people with little experience who didn't have the right knowledge and skills to find the scam. Since then, the Madoff scandal has become a symbol of the failure of market control, and it has shown that the current regulatory system has a lot of holes. It raises important questions about how regulators should protect investors and make sure that financial markets are fair and clear. In the end, Bernie Madoff received a 150-year prison sentence and was ordered to repay $170 billion in damages. The story is a warning for both investors and regulators. It shows how important it is to keep an eye on things and do your homework in the financial world. The Bernie Madoff scandal shows what can happen when greed goes unchecked and the market isn't well regulated. Even though there were a lot of warning signs and complaints, Madoff was able to run his Ponzi scheme for years. He left behind a lot of sad investors and a broken financial system. It shows how important it is to keep an eye on the market to protect both individuals and the economy as a whole. Stay tuned with us as we continue to explore and bring you more fascinating incidents. And don't forget to like and share this video with others.